This is my September reading wrap up. In the month of September, I got selected for an artist residency, and I'm so excited. I have been looking to this residency for years, and I just think it's incredible to be selected, and I'm so thankful and honored. It's just so cool. But yes, let's talk about the books that I read. I read 9 books, so like all over the map. I read some like little horror bits. I read a rom-com. I read some classics. I read some Litfic. I read a gorgeous memoir that's coming out soon. I read some new releases. I read some older stuff, like really all over the map. I'm excited to tell you all about them. So let's get into it. Best Woman by Rose Dommu. I don't read romance a lot. I don't read a lot of romance. So when I do, it's because it's special, and I love Rose Dommu. I've been a fan of hers for a very long time. She's just like the funniest person, the smartest person, incredible. And so when she was coming out with a book, I was really excited. And I knew that if she was choosing to write a rom-com, there was a reason for it. She wanted to say something. It meant something to her. And this is an ode to, at least the way I read it, and I'm sure I've seen her say this also, this is an ode to like 90s rom-coms, Julia Roberts style. Like, that's what this felt like to me. And it did send me into a spiral of watching like all of Julia Roberts' rom-coms from the 90s. So that was really fun. And I'm thankful to it for that. Essentially, it's about a girl who is, she's trans. She lives in New York. And she's from Florida. Her brother is getting married, and she's the best woman in the wedding. And so it's like, it starts with like her sort of reckoning with the fact that her brother's getting married, the fact that she has to go back to Florida, which is like Florida. And then she finds out that the maid of honor is a girl that she had a crush on all through high school. And then things sort of, you know, in a rom-com way, sort of like things happen, things devolve from there, and a lot of ups and downs and all arounds. And it was just such a fun read. This read like butter. The writing is beautiful. It's really quippy. You can tell that it's written by someone who like has a lot of viral tweets, if that makes sense, but not in a way that's annoying. It is really cohesive, and it makes a lot of sense, and I really, really liked it. And I cannot wait to see what Rose does next. I also feel like this could be a really great movie, so I'm excited to see it. When does it come out? Oh no, it's already out. Okay. Yeah, so it's out, and I think you should pick this up. This is fantastic. The Starboard Sea by Amber Dermont is basically what I use to scratch my The Secret History itch. This is a book that when I first started dating my boyfriend, he told me this was his favorite book. And then at least that's how I remember it. And then when I told him that, he was like, I don't know if that's true. I think he might have been lying to impress me, which is really funny. But it's essentially set in the late 80s in prep schools on the East Coast of the US. And it's like, it's about privilege, it's about class, it's about wealth, it's about a lot of sailing. The sailing stuff in this is really interesting. There's a lot of sequences that are just like in-depth, really detailed technical sailing stuff, but I liked it, which was just strange. Essentially, it's about a guy who, or a boy, a young man, who goes to a new school because he got kicked out of his last one. And this school that he goes to is basically the school that like, it's kind of like a last resort. Anyone who's been kicked out of any school will go there. And there's a lot of like Lord of the Fliesy sort of stuff, and social dynamics and power struggles and all that sort of stuff going on at that school. And he, the narrator, has like a dark past and has things that happened to him and reasons that he came to this school. He's struggling with his sexuality. He's sort of like feels a bit weird about his wealth. He feels weird about his privilege. Like all of those things are things that he's reckoning with. And then it's kind of a murder mystery also wrapped into it. I don't want to give away too much, but things happen. And then it's him sort of like facing these social dynamics, these power struggles that are at play, and him trying to figure out what the cost of friendship and like what it means to be a friend and all of these things, while also trying to figure himself out. I liked this. I haven't read The Secret History in so long, so it's hard to like compare it to that. But it did feel really similarly, and this feels like the perfect fall campus kind of novel. And I did like it. So yeah, I would recommend this. This was really fun. We Are Green and Trembling by Gabriela Cabezon Camara, translated by Robin Myers, is such a weird little book. So weird. I read the one-liner and it was like a Basque nun in the 17th century is also trans and a war lieutenant in the Spanish conquest of Argentina. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to read that. What? And it is that weird and it continues to it stays weird throughout. And yeah. Basically this novel is told in two parts or two sections throughout, and you kind of go through both. The first is letters that Antonio, his name is Antonio, he's writing to his aunt, and he recounts his entire life before he got to Argentina. And then the other part is like him as he's writing these letters, like in present day in the novel, that he essentially has saved two young indigenous girls from his other lieutenants, and like they were gonna do bad things to them. And so he saved them and he's running away from the other people that are trying to find him. And it's weird. It's weird. It's very weird. Things blend. It's dreamlike. Well, at times it's dreamlike and then other times it's like really solid and real, but it's very interesting. And the most interesting parts of it to me are like the colonialism aspects of it, the violence, the like complete carnage that is being like brought upon these people. And also like Antonio is saving these two indigenous girls, but still he is like trying to put religion onto them and like his culture. It was just like even the person that we're supposed to be rooting for, there's nuance there, and like we are still being shown the effects of colonialism when it's not violence, if that makes sense. And to me that was really interesting, and it felt like this author was trying to like make sense of that for herself, of this history of her country and like how she knows that it would have been and was, and the effects of colonialism like generations and generations later. So yes, very interesting. Super weird, hard to explain, like slippery, a lot going on. But I liked it, and it was really short, so I flew through it. And I had a good time with it. It just reminded me like queer people have always existed. We've always been here. This person was a real person. Like his life may not have been exactly like it was in the novel, but this is based on on a real person. So like queer people have always been here. They'll always be here. Like that was just like a great reminder of that. And it was really like such an inventive way to tell this story. And in like, yeah, so cool. Herculine by Grace Byron comes out October 7th. And this is not going to be for everyone. I know some people are going to not like this, and that's why I liked it. This novel is two different things. It is a literary fiction novel that's like, feels very Brooklyn, feels very trans, feels very queer, that's like about trans identity and about queerness and about being a person today, and having to like figure that out. And then the other side is like a really gross demonic possession horror, freaky deaky, like completely not sanitized horror. And those two things don't go together, and they don't necessarily go together in this, but in a way that I enjoyed, if that makes sense. They go together because it's a cohesive novel, but they're not like meant to work. And that's why it's strange. But I really enjoyed this. Essentially, it's about a girl who is trans and living in New York, and she is dealing with a lot of demons, her past, her exes, like shitty jobs. She has a sleep paralysis demon, and then she like answers the call from one of her exes to go to this all trans girl commune in Indiana, I think. And then she gets there and things are just not what they seem. And it's a subversion of this thing that like a lot of queer people talk about or want or do or whatever, that like, let's just all buy a farm and live together there. I have had that conversation a million times with queer people. So that was really funny to me, and like a fun subversion of that. And then the horror is like really so interesting, and it's about the pressures of like surgery for trans people, and it's about trans identity, the horror is still like really present in that conversation. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. And I love queer horror. And this is like a great addition to that. Um, and it's just like dripping with style and taste. And like it's doing something really cool that I liked. And I love this cover. Anyways, I really enjoyed this, and I wonder what people are going to say about it, because I know a lot of people are going to talk about this. So I'm curious to see what comes out of this. The South by Tash Ah is a Booker Prize longlist title from this year, and it is a queer coming of age set in the 1990s in rural Malaysia. And I didn't like it. I didn't love it. I'm supposed to like this book. I had this I read this alongside Martha from Martha's Monthly on Substack, one of my friends, and we were talking about it, and I was like, I'm supposed to like this. Like, this is the kind of novel that I love, which is like a queer coming of age, especially set in the 90s. Like, that's gorge. But it really, like, idea is 10, execution is really lower. It's really quiet, it's really intimate, it's really slow in a way that I think does it a lot of, like, a big disservice. The novel starts with a really violent sexual encounter, and then everything is flat from there, which is so confusing to me, like the choice to do that. And like, I'm not sure I'm still not sure I like can wrap my head around that, because it's so high and so heightened right at the beginning, and then it kind of just goes, ooh. Essentially it's about a young boy in Malaysia who lives in the city, but then his mom inherits a farm in the countryside, and so he goes there for a summer, and the farm is like in ruins. It's like not it's not like a productive farm. And then he meets the son of the farm manager, and then they sort of like have a thing throughout. And then it's also about the family, and the family like sort of like falling apart. And yeah, I wanted this to be good. I wanted this to be great, but I did not feel as though it was telling me what I needed to know. It's mostly written in first person, but there's like no emotional center to it, which was really confusing to me. It felt like a lot of it was cinematic. Like, the set was really beautiful, and like I could see that happening. But then it was like, we're relying on the actors to do, like, if we're talking about this in terms of a play or a movie, like, the set is beautiful, and then we're relying on the actors to do something, but you are like giving the actors that direction. Do you know what I mean? As the writer. So like, without the direction, what do they do? There's like not much going on, which is kind of how this felt. And we're being told a lot of like things that I feel like we should be feeling. So all this to say, I really enjoyed the set and the ideas and everything that's going on. The like race elements were really interesting to me. And the queer coming of age, of course, in Malaysia is really interesting to me. So I'm excited. I would read more from this author. I just think this one like did not hit the nail on the head for me. And maybe I'm more critical because it is a queer coming of age, and those are things that I read a lot. That is very possible. And I'm just realizing that now. Hey, listen, we got to do what we got to do, okay? But yeah, I wish I loved this, and I didn't, and that made it disappointing to me. Stoner by John Williams is a book that I've wanted to read for a really long time, and I finally did. And I read it in like 2 sittings, which is honestly how I would recommend it, because I think if you were to slowly get through this, I don't know that it would have the same impact, or that you would be interested in continuing. Because for 75% of this novel, I was sort of like, it's good, I guess, I like it, but I'm not floored. And then when I finished it, or like the last 25% even, I was like, oh, it's actually like shifting the earth under me, without me knowing. And that's really special and really cool that you can have that experience reading a book where you're left changed, but you don't know that it's happening while it's happening, if that makes sense. I was talking to Petya, who has read this book, who also has a Substack and a YouTube, and she was telling me that this book really like changed the course of her reading life, and that she compares it to a slow trickle that turns into a flood by the end of it. Like, it slowly trickles water, and then you're in a bath, like at the end of it, which I thought was so interesting and exactly how I felt about it. Essentially, it's about a man named William Stoner, and he's growing up poor on a farm in Missouri in the early 1900s. And then his parents send him to a state university. He gets like the chance to go for agriculture. And then he's there and he decides to switch his major to literature because he falls in love with it when he goes to a specific class. And the rest of it is his life in academia, as a teacher, as a husband, in marriage, as a parent. So small and quiet and still and mundane and like so sad and so bleak. I had so much pity for this character, and I had to like really reckon with that, because it is sort of just like a normal life, but so much of it happens to him and he's not in the driver's seat of it, and that made me so sad for him. And you can really feel through this character, you can feel that like he's aware that he's powerless in front of it, but he can't do anything about it, and that was just so sad to me. So yes, this book sort of changed how I felt. I had a reading hangover after this. It was just fantastic, and I know that I'm going to read this again and again. And I'm glad that I finally did read it. And if you have not read this yet, just do it. At this point, I really think you should do it. Heart the Lover by Lily King is out on October 7th. What to say about Lily King? Incredible, untouchable, a writer's writer, like your favorite writer's favorite writer. There's something about Lily King that I'm like, she should be so much bigger than she is. And I don't know why she's not. So I really wonder. I read Writers and Lovers from her, and I absolutely loved it. Like, it changed the way that I think about writing. I think about it constantly in terms of the craft. She writes exactly the way I think a lot of writers want to write, which is literary but accessible. It's like the kind of writing where you're like floored by a sentence, but not in a way that feels pretentious, which she just does that so well. She toes that line beautifully, and this novel is no different. It was incredible. I sobbed so much, and I didn't feel like I was being forced to cry. I really felt like I was in with these characters so much that I couldn't help but cry. It's told in two parts. It starts with a girl that goes to college, and then she falls in with two different guys, and there's sort of a love triangle going on, and yada yada yada. And then it is a second part, which is like 20 or 30 years later, 20 maybe, years later, and it's them three and their dynamic now, and what's happening now. And I'm not going to give away too much. I'm not going to say anything else about the plot, but I just think you should read. If you haven't read Writers and Lovers, you should read that before this. They are sort of like sister novels in a way. Friendship, desire, loss, first love, and then also like identity and parenthood and like growing apart. And there's so much like dropped in realism in dialogue and in these relationships and in these people. It really feels like this is a life that has been lived. And I'm just in awe of Lily King. I love her, and I want to read everything from her, and I think I will. Perfection by Vincenzo Latronico, translated by Sophie Hughes. I feel personally attacked by this book, and I think that's like what a lot of people have been saying. This was on the Booker, the International Booker long list, either this year, maybe even short list this year or last year, and a lot of people talked about it, and I finally got my hands on it from the library, and I just finished it, so I will bring it back right after this. And it's about just regular millennials who move to a new city, make a new life for themselves, like the things that they're supposed to like, live the way that they're supposed to live, have like weird techie marketing jobs. I felt very concerned by this novel because a lot of the things I have done or felt or thought or been or whatever, And I know that that's not a unique experience. A lot of people have felt that reading this. So much of that I was like, is this a joke? Like, this feels like a thought exercise of like, how can I write the most like generic kind of person that will like reach a lot of different people and like maybe elicit a reaction in them? And it worked for me. I thought it was really cool. Um, they go to Berlin. I've presumably from Italy. They go to Berlin, but again, it's like every time that they talk about language, it's like French or Italian or German or like it's not really clear, and it's meant to be sort of generic that you like apply your thing onto it. They go to a new city and they have a like an apartment that they decorate in the way that like everyone wants to decorate their apartment because they saw it on Pinterest, and then they see something happen that like makes them want to become socially aware and like activists for like 5 minutes, and then they decide they don't want to do it anymore, and like the fad is over and all of that, and it's like interesting what it's saying. um yeah, so weird, so cool. I would recommend it to everyone. I'm actually gonna tell my boyfriend to read this because I think he'll be quite gagged and feel like this plays about us kind of vibes. Yeah, this is cool. I'm glad I read this. Bread of Angels by Patti Smith comes out November 4th. It is a memoir, and I received it and read it right away because when you receive a package from Betsy Lerner, Patti Smith's agent, you read the book, okay? You read the book. And I'm so glad that I did. First of all, it's beautiful. I think it's just really gorgeous, but it is a memoir that tracks the start of her life all the way to today and then back again in a really, really interesting way. Um, the parts that I liked the most or that were the most striking to me were her early life, riddled with like illnesses and like different health issues and all sorts of stuff. They're very poor and they're moving around constantly, and they're the way that they're experiencing life, her and her family, is not great. But I found that so interesting, and she had so much to say about it. The ability to recollect in this, whether it's like 100% or not, I have none of that. And so I'm so jealous that she's able to find these moments even that feel really like peaks, whether that's positive or negative, of like recollection. I found that so fascinating and really well done. The way she talks about grief, the way she talks about love and family and becoming, it was just so interesting. And her life is fascinating, and she like rubbed shoulders with some of the most iconic people, and she talks about that in this novel or in this memoir. um and I just loved it. I don't know, her writing is so beautiful and lyrical, and you can really just hear it all from her voice, if that makes sense. She's so singular, I find, and so much of this resonated really loudly. um and I'm so glad that I read this, and I want to go back and read like her novel or her memoirs again, and like read her works again and listen to her music. And she just makes me want to like bask in her artistry and art and presence and personhood. She's so singular and I love it. Yeah, this is really great. Like, just such a treat to read her again. And yeah, this is fantastic. I know a lot of people will love this. And she is a singular mind, and I am so glad we get to have her words once again. That's it. Those are the 9 books that I read in the month of September. I know. It was a lot. It was a lot. But I traveled a bit, and then I went camping. So I read like 4 books while I was camping. Not really. I think 2. Maybe 2.5. But I really enjoyed most of them. You heard the ones that I had some thoughts about, but I would love to know what you loved in September. So let me know in the comments. I'm always looking for fall reads. So if you have any suggestions for like little spookies or like still little academia stuff, I'm interested and I'm ready for October. So let me know. I'd love to see it. That's it for now. And as always, thanks for watching.